Hi, I'm Chris with T&K Off-Road and Overland. We're here in my 2008 Jeep Wrangler. Today we are going to be going over how to do an oil change, transmission fluid change on a manual transmission, and a transfer case fluid change. Alright, so here is the products we'll be using today. Valvoline 520 and a K&N oil filter for the 3.8 liter. Valvoline MTF Synchromesh for the NSG 370. And then ATF Plus 4 for the 241 OR edition. You can also see here the tools. We have an oil filter wrench, a 13mm socket for the drain plug, and a ratchet to remove the bolt. For the transmission, we have a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, a 21mm wrench for this special tool to attach the or remove the drain plug, which is very tight. I will show you how that is used. A 14mm Allen socket to remove the fill plug. And then you'll need a 16mm socket 6-point to remove these 3 bolts that hold the transmission mount to the transmission cross member, and a floor jack to raise it up to be able to accommodate this tool. For the transfer case, we have a 10mm Allen socket, and we will use the 3/8 drive ratchet here to remove the drain and fill plugs. I have already removed the 3 bolts for the transmission cross member and the 4 bolts for the transfer case skid plate. The skid plate is not necessary to be removed, but it makes things easier. Also, I have a very bad rattle from my exhaust, so I'm going to use these band clamps to hold the heat shield in, which the spot welds have cracked on. As you see here, this is your oil filter. Make sure you have an oil bucket beneath, because it is going to get messy. Crack it loose with your tool. Shouldn't be overly tight. Spin it loose, it will drain. Let that drain for a quick second or two. Remove your oil filter. You will get oil on your front axle. It's best when you're filming to have the oil filter at hand and ready to go, and a rag. So I have the new K&N oil filter seen here, and a rag. Use the rag, wipe down your gasket sealing surface. Make sure it's fairly clean, not overly clean. So now you have a dry gasket here. Get some of that oil that you just wiped up and just lubricate your O-ring. Now I know this video seems a little bit redundant, but there's some people out there who just bought Jeeps or a car and have never done this. So that's what this video is for. Screw that on there. You just go a little bit more than hand tight. Just as tight as you can make it by hand. Now K&N has this handy dandy nut. I don't know if you can see it, but right there. That's for people who over tighten things. Or sometimes the filter gets a little hard to get off. Now we'll move to draining the oil out of the oil. Alright, so here we are at the oil pan. This bolt here is your oil drain screw. Make sure you have an oil bucket positioned properly beneath, because there will be a mess. Take your 13 and your ratchet, get on there, and just break it loose. It should be moderately tight, but nothing too crazy. Just go ahead and spin that baby out. Be careful, especially if your oil is hot, which I do recommend that you have your oil at least warm. It makes the draining process much quicker. Now, just like that, wait till it just has a few drips coming out, and then reinstall your oil drain plug. So anywhere at this juncture in time where there's just a small stream of oil coming out, feel free to reinstall your drain plug. You can wait till there's absolutely nothing coming out, but your benefits are going to be negligible versus the time you have to waste. So now that that's in, go ahead and torque this down. I do not recall what the torque spec is off the top of my head, but Gutentite is the torque spec that seems to work best for me. Next, we will move on to draining and filling the transmission. Alright, so now we are going to do a drain and fill on the manual transmission in the 2008 Jeep Wrangler. Well, this is because it's been about 30,000 miles that I've owned this Jeep, and I have never done it. I've checked it, and it's been a little low, so I've topped it off before. This here is going to be your fill plug. Always make sure that you can remove a fill plug before you drain the fluid, otherwise you are going to have a bad day. So we'll take our 14mm Allen socket on our 1/2" drive ratchet and break it loose. It's going to be a little tight. And that's good, because you don't want it to leak. So, pull that out. We know for sure that we can get it out. By the looks of it, I have enough oil in the case for proper lubrication as it is spilling out. So while it is doing that, we will move down here. This is going to be your fill plug. Now it is kind of in a terrible area. Now, I've made that tool shown earlier in this video to access this. So now I'll show you how to do that. I have found the best way is to take a spin jack, or a dead man jack if you will, and attach it underneath the transfer case. Sorry about that. It's a little difficult to do with one hand. Sorry about that. Now that we have the transmission raised up, we take off the 3 bolts located underneath here, which allows the transmission to raise. As you can see, this is what I'm talking about with my heat shield. Spot welds here and here on both sides are broken, causing a severe rattle at about 3,000 RPM. We will fix that in a moment. So, you're going to take your homemade tool, 17mm on this side, 21 on this side, welded together, and you're going to just get it up in there. There's several different tools you can use to accomplish this. I made this. So just break that loose, pull the tool out before you have to screw it back in, finish threading this out by hand. Now again, this is going to make a mess, and it's going to be on your exhaust, and you're going to clean. Like that. Now if you look here, I don't know if you can see, but the drain screw itself is magnetic. That is all of the stuff that's been inside your transmission since the last time the fluid was changed. In some cases, it has never been changed. So I will go and wipe this off. Now, you can see just how clean that is. There's still a little bit on there, but it is kind of a pain to get out. So now that that's all cleaned up, we're going to put it back in. Now, it had some thread sealant on it. I don't have that. You can use Teflon tape if you want, but it is a pipe thread, so it should seal. This is a steel bolt going into an aluminum housing, so be careful, do not over torque it. You can crack the housing. I have seen several other housings where just minor torque has caused it to crack. So you get it in as far as you can go, put your little homemade tool back in, or whatever tool you have chosen to use, and just tighten it up. Now, this could have gone much worse had I not pre-planned this. You can see it's not going as smoothly as I would have hoped, but it's still going. So now that you've got that almost all the way tight, you just want to put some torque on it. I believe the factory spec is going to be 22 foot-pounds. I am not 100% certain on that. I have not found that in writing anywhere. But just go ahead and get somewhere close to snug. A little bit past that, maybe. Go ahead and lower the transmission back down into place. You'll no longer need it lifted up. Now comes the fun part. You're going to get your bottle of oil, and you're going to lose the cap to it immediately. Don't worry, you can find it. Open your bottle of differential oil or manual transmission fluid, put the nipple into the hole, and just go ahead and fill it up. It should take just over 1.5 liters of this fluid to fill it up. You know you're full when you have a steady stream of oil rolling out of the plug. So bottle 1 is in. Now we go and put in bottle 2. Each one of these bottles is about 960 milliliters. So you just kind of get it in there. It's not really a good way to do this without having this on some sort of pump, which I do not have. This is a special transmission fluid. It is not just gear oil. There we go. Now we've got a steady stream coming out. So go ahead, you can let that bleed off, or you could leave it just a little over full. Put your fill plug back in. Go ahead and tighten down your fill plug. Now, you got this mess of oil there. You're going to go ahead and you're going to want to clean that all off before you're done. And that's how you service the NSG. Okay, now here we are doing the transfer case oil change. This, on my Jeep, is an MP for new processed gear 241 OR. This tag's a little hard to read because it is very muddy. But this is the Rubicon transfer case with a 4-to-1 low range. So, you will locate here your oil fill plug, and here is your oil drain plug. Now, what I said before about making sure that you can get the oil fill plug open still stands. So you put your 10mm Allen socket on your wrench and open it. Little tight, but it comes out, which is always a huge plus when you're dealing with steel on aluminum construction. There you can see some of the transmission fluid that is in there coming out. This transfer case, unlike some transfer cases, uses a modified automatic transmission fluid. It is called ATF4 or plus 4. Do not use anything else in this transfer case. The same could be said with the transmission. It takes a very special transmission fluid. It uses the MS9228 or 224, I'm not sure, from Chrysler. It can use that fluid or the Valvoline Synchromesh or anything that meets or exceeds that standard. Anything besides that can cause shifting issues. This is my first time trying the Valvoline. So here, my camera. Don't mind that. Camera seems to be fine. So, loosen the drain screw. Make sure you have an oil drain bucket beneath, and that your camera is not going to get drenched in oil. So, now that the camera is safe, go and drain that out. These drain plugs are non-magnetic, so whatever particles they are in there or may be present, hopefully they come out. We will not flush the transfer case with any sort of fluid or flush additive or any of that. So we'll let that drain out, and I'm going to go get the transfer pump. Now that it's all drained out, take your drain plug, seal the hole. Again, these are taper plugs. We do not take anything special to seal them. Once that's nice and tight, you will use what I have here is a Harbor Freight transfer pump. You put one end into your bottle of ATF, and the other end you're going to kind of hold or stick in the holes as such. Now, you just kind of pump it and do that. That will happen. Just make sure you hold it in there. These Harbor Freight pumps, they're not the best, I'll be honest with you, but they're cheap. And I don't do this very often. So just go ahead and pump that cord in there. This should take 2 quarts. Maybe a little more. So once that's done, go ahead and switch your thing over, because you will be using the other quart. So as you can see, now you have clean, fresh red fluid running out. Go ahead, plug that up. For this video, I have removed the transfer case skid plate. It attaches to one bolt on the fuel tank, one bolt on the driver's side frame rail, and 2 bolts on the transmission crossmember. It just makes it a lot easier and a lot cleaner. Make sure you reinstall that. You will need it. Alright, so now what I'm about to do is not a sanctioned repair. I have this broken heat shield and it makes a rattle. It drives me insane. So I'm going to take these band clamps, hose clamps if you will, open them up all the way. Let me get on the other side of the light here. And we are going to put 2. One right here where the first spot welds broke, and one right here where the second spot welds broke, in a hope that 1, they're long enough, and 2, they'll keep this from happening more. This heat shield is a necessary heat shield as it does deflect a decent amount of heat off of your transmission. Well, hopefully these are short enough. I misspoke. With hose clamp 1 installed, get the second one on. You're going to want to get it in there. Put the screws in an area where you can easily reach, but they're not going to be in the way too much. Now that the outside one is fully down, you're going to want to make sure those are as tight as you can get. Now for these hose clamps, they are 8mm heads. So I will use an 8mm socket and a little 1/4" ratchet just to pull them all the way tight. You don't want to go too tight because they can snap, and when these snap, they hurt. So save a limb, save some blood, save some cussing. Now, that should be more than adequate to stop my rattle. I'll let you know in a future video.